Hello and welcome to Soul Symbols. My name is Shelley. I'm a writer, an astrologer, and a card reader, and I'd like to welcome you to my channel. Today is day 2 of the 31 days of tarot, and what that is a video blog sprint that occurs throughout the month of January. It is hosted by a fellow YouTuber named Ethony, who is such an advocate for card readers and tarot readers. She's a wonderful mentor and teacher, and what it is she hosts this vlog sprint each year, and every day throughout the month of January she gives a list of questions, and what you do is each day you answer that question with a video post. And today is day 2, which is what are your top 5 tarot decks of 2019. Now this vlog sprint is a very flexible one. It's one of those things where it doesn't have to necessarily be tarot decks that were published in 2019, but they were tarot decks that you acquired in 2019. So I really got into tarot. I had studied when I was a teenager, and then I really only had one deck for a long time. And in the last year, I really got into both tarot and oracles, so a majority of my tarot decks have been acquired in the last 18 months. And what I'm doing is I'm going to go ahead and share with you my top 5 tarot decks of this year, of 2019. So the very first one, and again, I create custom bags for each of my decks. Normally you would just see the box. And what it is the decks that I use the most often usually have a pattern, and I love coffee, so of course my Rider-Waite-Smith deck has coffee, and I even have a little pocket inside that holds the stone. Have a sunstone that goes with it. But all of the names of the decks are in the description box below. But every tarot reader typically has a traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck, which is the the Pamela Coleman Smith deck of choice. And what it was is that I went with I host a series called How to Tarot every Tuesday, and I also use this deck quite often. And 6 Pentacles. I'm wondering if the cards are speaking to me based on what's on my mind today. And Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a safe and happy ring into the new year. But what I liked the most about this deck is that it's got very clear images. What happened was the original Rider-Waite-Smith deck was created around the turn of the century, and what happened was around World War II, just like with all reproduced art, there are plates, or there's the original artwork to which publication companies would use to print the cards. And what had happened was they were originally held, the rights to it was originally held by an English company, and then later got sold to US Games. Now what happened was, sadly, around the Second World War, World War II, the plates for Pamela Coleman Smith's artwork got misplaced, or possibly acquired due to the activities of the war. And then ever since then, since about the mid-50s, what you would see is kind of reproductions, like almost like a Xerox copy. It's like a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox. And there's some great videos here on YouTube that talk about the differences. There's something called a Pam A, a Pam B, all the way to almost like a grade of diamond. And a Pam A is really the type of artwork that is so sharp that what you can do is they usually compare certain, like if you look at the strength card. But what it is that in all of these images, this deck is produced by A.G. Mueller, which is a German company. And what it is the artwork is strikingly very similar to a Pam A, or an A grade version of the artist's original work. And I don't know if it's because they have really had the plates, or if it's just some kind of reproduction of some earlier patent that they had. But you can see there's kind of like cross hatching, and the coloring of the original Rider-Waite Smith has always been in question, right? Like no one ever knows if it's, if the background was meant to be all yellow, or it seems like the original art has always been kind of like pencil or pen drawings. But the only other thing is that this is just a remarkably good deck, and I lucked out. And normally, sometimes you have to pay like $60 or $70 to get the deck in your language of choice, and I wanted it in English. I didn't want to buy it in another language, but I did look out, and I did get it in English for like $20, which I thought was a blessing. It was I don't have the biggest budget in the world, but the only difference between the A.G. Mueller production and some other productions of the cards is that it does not have what we call Pixie font, and Pixie was the nickname of Pamela Coleman Smith. They would call her Pixie because she was very petite. And if you Google, or even if you want, there's great videos that compare the different versions of Rider-Waite Smith. You can see that her handwriting is at the bottom, and it's a very distinct font. The font on these cards just looks like some type of Garamond. It's not the original handwriting of the artist, but that also kind of I feel like that contributes to the mystery of what happened. Is this the original art? And for whatever reason, as a writer, it's funny, we talk about that all the time. Sometimes versions of a manuscript will fall into people's hands at different times for different reasons. Like, for instance, if you have someone who's doing the artwork for your book, they would have a copy of the manuscript, but it might be the font or something like that might be separate. So I'm really curious why it is that they don't have the Pixie font, but they do seem to have what looks like the original artwork. So that's a mystery, and I always think that's great. But I am very grateful to have a very sharp looking, very clear. When you zoom in, that was very important to me, that I see those little details, because this is the cornerstone of what all tarot readers use. So again, I'll put the description, the name in the description box below, but that is most definitely one of my top, that is number one top deck of 2019. Now, the second deck that I got kind of on a whim, and I created a bag that's kind of like faux suede. Again, I love creating bags. I do. I love creating lots of little things. I did all of my own gift bags for Christmas this year. But what this is a tarot deck that's based on tattoo. It's called Inked in Intuition. And again, I will show you everything in the description box below. And oh, look, my girl's on the bottom of the deck. Yay. But it's a tattoo artist. It's a real tattoo artist who contributed all the artwork, and then there was another person who did the font for it. But basically, it is a pip deck. A pip deck would be where the minor arcana does not have any real stories to it, but all of the majors and the court cards have images. So here you have Justice. So for instance, like here you go, like the Eight of Cups, that would be a pip image. You just see 8 cups. And sometimes you can most definitely, with pip decks, you can still glean a story from it. And definitely the court cards are so interesting, like the Knave of Swords, which is the Page of Swords. You see how he has a little tattoo on his arm, and it's just so great. I really do love the artwork. I don't have any tattoos myself, but it's it's just pretty. It's like, that's the Ace of Pentacles. But, oh, look at the Ace of Cups. You got 2 doves. I love that. But yes, so my second deck, or the deck of 2019 that I enjoyed a lot, and this deck will actually come up in the list of ones that I want to use more in 2020. But that is a beautiful deck, and it's not expensive, and to get all the beautiful artwork with it, and if you're a fan of tattoo or that type of art, then that's a really wonderful deck to have. Now, the third deck of 2019 this one was definitely not published in 2019, and this is another really staple that tarot readers use. I have a linen bag, a linen bag. I'm almost giving you a display of the bags. And I keep little pockets. I create little sub pockets, and what it is I have a stone that I keep with it, if you see that. It's a really pretty stone that I keep with my cards. But let me go ahead and actually, can you see? I'll go ahead and pull out my other stone too. I'm not too superstitious about cleansing, but I don't think it hurts, and it's very decorative. But the third deck is the Anna K Tarot, and I'm not quite sure when it was published. It's been out quite a while, but I had heard so many people, just seen so many tarot readers, really talk about it. In my How to Tarot series this last week, I did How to Tarot on a very challenging card. I did the How to Tarot on Death. And it's funny when we came, not funny, but when I went through the description of death, one of the biggest ways that you can kind of comprehend a tarot card is through the artwork. And you would say, okay, if I were a tarot card artist, we got the Ace of Pentacles again. I think we're getting a story here, guys. Pulling energy. But the way that an artist envisions the card really says so much. It's the crucial part of as a card reader, what we do is we really channel, we get into the card, the imagery, right? And the deck that we're drawn to use and its imagery really plays into it. So Anna K really, she does these almost, it kind of reminds me a little bit of, the Engelbright kind of artwork, but hers is, Anna K's is very detailed. It's not as cartoony. But what I love about it is that you do get such beautiful images, and actually this one card is one of my favorite, Two of Wands, because when you look at it, it's about a choice, right? But the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith Two of Wands almost looks a little bit more, here I'll even pull it out for comparison. It looks a little bit kind of like sunshine and daisies, I like to say. It's just kind of, the Rider-Waite-Smith Two of Wands looks so decisive. It's like, oh, you have a choice. You're going to make that choice. You got the world in your hand. But sometimes the Two of Wands, so here you go, the Rider-Waite-Smith is on the left, and then the Anna K is on the right. And you see, like, in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, he looks like he's pretty much got it together, right? Like, okay, I'm making a decision. This is going to be great, right? But sometimes, sometimes cards have deeper interpretation than that. Not that the Rider-Waite-Smith isn't absolutely that meaning. But, I liked the way that Anna K kind of depicted it as like, which way do I go? I've got two rods. And it's a four-way split, right? So I just thought it was, all of her cards do that. Like, there's a few of them that really give a new, in-depth spin, like the Four of Cups. And that's lethargy, right? You got three cups, you got people offering you all sorts of stuff, and you're just like, no. And it's, it's so neat. And I like the way that she, there's a few cards in here that are, a lot of them are very traditional, but some of them just give us this beautiful new spin, like even the Ace of Cups, from left to right, it looks like you're going from wintertime to spring, and you see this woman holding this cup. And, and she just looks so warm, even though she's got snow less than a foot away from her. It's like, it's incredibly easy to read. Really, it gets the point across. And, there's just a few in here that are just, my favorites, like in particular the King of Swords. I always say all the time that he's a strategic character, right? It's almost like playing chess, like he's up in his head, he's analytical. And look at that, that's the King of Swords. And he's got that sword so straight on the table, like, and again, her imagery is just really gorgeous, and it really, gets the message out so clearly. And so it's one of those go-to decks that if you ever need a clear answer, or if you're learning tarot for the first time, that would be another one. There's few decks that I encourage I learned tarot the traditional way, where before you had YouTube and you had all the advice, thrown at you as to how to learn it right. So I kind of made the mistake of going with kind of a designer deck. I wanted the pretty deck, and what happened was I couldn't quite grasp the images. You almost have to learn it in a kind of a simplistic way before you jump into the real fancy dancy decks, because if you do need to, in your head, revert back to the traditional meaning, and you didn't really learn the traditional meaning. So again, I learned on the Morgan Greer deck initially, but if the Anna Kay, if I had known about the Anna Kay in the beginning, I probably would have gone with that as my first deck. So, but that was a deck I acquired in 2019. Now, this next deck was a Kickstarter project, and it is called The Slow Tarot by Lacey Bryant. And again, all the descriptions are in the description box below. And this I actually ordered. I did the pledge for Kickstarter, and I was so excited. And I made a pretty bag. The Slow Tarot got the gorgeous bag with this. It's got the satin and it has a stone pocket, and it has a bloodstone that I keep with it. But what it is that this deck was created over 8 years, and I feel like 8 is such a powerful number. I feel like 8 is like a Saturn number. It's like a Capricorn, and just because 8 years is high school and college. 8 years is, for some reason, 8 in my mind is some kind of cycle of learning in life. And we got the Page of Swords again. We got that with the Tattoo Tarot. And what it is that Lacey Bryant is an artist from California, and all of these cards are actual paintings that she created. She did, and it was more than 78. It was like 80, because she did a few different versions, and there's a few extra cards. Like she has, there's one card called Atonement that's not really, and then she was kind of trying to find the right world card for the major arcana, and she ended up doing 2 worlds, and I love both worlds. I actually keep both. I got both worlds as part of the deal, the Kickstarter deal, and I keep both worlds in the deck. But her purpose was, just like anyone who loves the tarot, she wanted a modern revision of the tarot, because the traditional tarot is like kings and queens and knights, and you can glean all of the information that you need from that, but to put it in a modern context and to make it very digestible. And I just love her images. Like here, this is the Page of Swords, and I love artists who envision the pages as children, not like babies, but like learners, because that's what the page is. And I just love the expression. It's like she's learning how to wield that sword. She's learning how to wield her words, and it's like, aha. And you can see the sky behind her. It's just, again, it's a very apt name to call it Slow Tarot, because it really is. You can just ponder, you can pore over the images and really, like, oh, this is another one of my favorites. Like, okay, the Two of Swords, and again, I'll compare it to Rider-Waite real quick. And as we go through the How to Tarot, this deck will likely come up quite a bit, just because, I just feel like she got a lot of the modern interpretations so right. So the Rider-Waite interpretation of the Two of Swords is on the left, and her interpretation is on the right. And how brilliant is that to do fencers? Because you see the rocks, you see the water, and you see the water's calm in the corner. It's green, you can see through it, but then it's like, again, between the 2 rocks, they're just splashing. And what do you do when you fence, right? You're trying to tag the other person, and here you got this heart. And what's awesome is that you can't see each other's face. And there's this falcon in the sky. It's almost like crying for, I can hear the falcon's cry of communication. Like, can't we just talk about this? Can't we just, And again, you can see why I love this deck so much. When it came in, I was stupid excited. And now there are a few cards that I don't, that I'm still learning, that I don't 100% resonate with, but 78% of them I really love, like the Eight of Wands. And again, just the way that she envisioned it, you know, she's got it so modern, and the majors are really gorgeous, and it's very slow. You can just kind of, you know, engulf yourself into it. You know, and again, just like all decks, you're not going to agree with every single card, but when you can, I always say if you like 2/3 of the deck, you know, that's a good deal, right? Like for instance, this is the Tower, and you know how you always talk about, you know, the Tower being, you know, faulty foundations, and the, you know, just it's going to come tumbling down, and you can see that, like the expression on the guy's face, just like, you know, you put all that work into it, it's just like, pfft. And I just think this is one of my top decks of 2019. I acquired it in 2019, and I just really think that I'm gonna find some really, you know, some joy in using it throughout my tarot experience, really. All right, so last deck. Now this deck definitely did not get published in 2019, but I totally lucked out and I found it online for a reasonable price. This is the Jane Austen, the Tarot of Jane Austen. And what it is this was published in the 90s, and it had a corresponding book. And I was so lucky that I got to meet Diane Wilkes, who is the author of the book, and at my tarot retreat. And what it is that all of the cards are based on the Jane Austen stories. And as a writer, as a literature major, oh my God, I am in love with these cards, because they just, it takes my tarot. And again, when you do reads, you know, you can watch videos from other tarot readers. We choose our decks very carefully, contingent upon the nature, the topic of the read, and, you know, what our goal is. But when I get such powerful messages from this, because I know that's Emma, and I know, you know, her, I know the story, right? I know the Austen story. And I actually, on my channel on Jane Austen's birthday, which was December 16th, I posted a Jane Austen love reading. So if you get a chance, if you'd like to check that out, please do. It was a fun read. And what you do is you pick an object, and I tell you your Jane Austen love story. But this is definitely in my top 10 for 2019, because we got the lovers. You got Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet, and that's Darcy's half sister, Georgiana. But yeah, so, oh my gosh, but this is a great deck. It's, unfortunately, I was trying my best to not show any decks that would be out of print, but one thing that in a few days, that one of the questions we're going to ask is, what is your most anticipated decks of 2020? And let me promise you, Jane Austen is making a resurgence in 2020. There's going to be several really great decks, including one by the same author of the book for this deck, that are coming. And so please stay tuned. I think it's day 5. But just know that, you know, even if you can't get your hands on a copy of this vintage deck, there's new decks coming, and it's super exciting, and it's great to see it, you know, both in the traditional decks and in Oracle. So yeah, there's several Jane Austen Oracle decks coming too. That's just really exciting. So, but yep, these are my top 5 decks of 2019. I hope you enjoyed. I really enjoyed sharing that with you. And then I am continuing the 31 Days of Tarot tomorrow. Tomorrow is day 3, and we're going to talk about the top 5 Oracle decks of 2019. I hope you can join me, and I'll see you then. Bye.